Well, we're here at the CCA workbench, and it's time for the Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques. Dave and Tuna, I can tell you know a lot about. We got
Tuna
more
tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I get to see him every once in a while, so we used to see him a lot more often, but they're great to catch. You know, in Florida, we get quite a few different ones. You know, we get to catch the yellowfin, the blackfin, the skipjack, and the bonitas. A lot of guys like to eat the black fins. You know, I'm not a big fan of them. I like yellowfin tunas. That's what I'm fishing for when I'm fishing for tunas. I think skipjack's even better than the blackfin tuna. But and there's guys who will eat those bonitas too, and they'll argue with me all day about how great they are. But I'm not eating those either. You can have them if you want to. Those little tunnies, they call them. And there's always a big school of those little tunnies out in front of Jupiter. And so that's where a lot of fellas, I mean, people come from the Northeast. They come down here to catch those little tunies on the fly rod and everything. They're a big deal. They fight hard. They, like all tunas, they fight to the end. And that's one thing you can count on from a tuna fish. It will fight you till the end. They have that dark red meat, so they have incredible stamina. They have those big sickle tails, so they can swim fast. They are one of the biggest and most ferocious predators in the ocean, besides the marlin. I mean, they are an extreme predator, and they can swim so fast. And they're also one of them have the biggest eyes and some of the best vision of any fish. They can see colors, unlike blue marlin. They can see all kinds of colors and stuff. So color actually does. That's one of the things when people ask me about what color you should pull. That's one time when you should start to pay attention a little bit, because yellowfin, if you've got a lot of stuff out there of one color and there's a different color and they keep biting that different one, change it out.
Change everything to
because
that color.
That's what they're wanting to eat. And that's another good thing about tuna fish. When you find the tunas, you know, one of the biggest things about getting a tuna to bite is matching what is eating. Whatever it is eating at that time, and the size of it especially.
Okay, so what are we typically going to use?
Well, you hear a lot of times a guy will go chugging by a bunch of tuna fish with a ballyhoo and on an island lure like this, which normal times, you know, everything would pile on that.
Right.
But if the tunas are eating a lot of stuff like that's this big, with no ballyhoo behind it, and you come pulling through there, they're going to bite that because that's the size of the thing that they're eating. If they're eating big things, then you pull big things. If you can't see what the tuna are eating and they're all splashing around and just going crazy, they're not out there, you know, that's not frivolity. They're not having a good time. They're eating something. So it could be little tiny things that you can't see. And if that's the case, then you need to,
little things like this come into play.
You need to drop down your sizes until, you know, you can put a number 5/0 hook in there, an extra strength eagle claw, you know, a live bait hook even, and put a little lead weight in that octopus skirt and a little 5/0 hook behind it, right at the end of the skirt. Boom, you'll get a bite. And you can catch 40, 60, 80-pound tunas on those little double-X hooks, and you'll get bit, which is the most important thing with tunas, is trying to get bit.
Now, is fluorocarbon, like this diamond presentation, is that important, Dave?
Yes, usually because they can see so good, especially during the daytime, you're going to want to use fluorocarbon. And if you're if you're chunking for these fish, you know, you can pull up and chum real heavy, like Mike Holliday was saying out here. You can chum real heavy with some pilchards, but you want to use fluorocarbon, because if you're chunking and that little bait is floating down with the rest of the stuff, that yellowfin can get a good eyeball on it. And if he can see that leader, he's not going to eat it. If he can see your hook sometimes, he won't eat it. In the Northeast, a lot of guys will go to great lengths to try to hide the whole hook inside of a big butterfish or a bait, because the yellowfin will see it and get skittish and not come near it. Anytime you use any little lure that looks like a flying fish, you're probably in a good area, because tuna fish love to eat flying fish. When you're off on the other side of the Gulf Stream on the east coast of Florida, you're looking for birds and bait busting and stuff like that. If you see that big column of birds floating in the air, that means there's usually skipjack and yellowfin tunas mixed in with them. And if you go trolling by with that little flying fish imitator, you're probably going to get a bite.
What else do you typically, what about vertical jigging when the metal jigs came out?
Yeah, when you mark those fish down deep, you know, a lot of times the tuna will hang deep during the day and come up in the morning and at dusk, but that doesn't mean that those tuna won't eat sometimes. If they're down there on the bait and you're marking bait down and you're marking big tunas down there too, you can drop vertical jigs down there and jig those tuna up, or even a bait. And if you're trolling, you know, you can use a planer. If you're not getting any bites, say, and you know, you've gone maybe 10, 11 passes by there, throw something smaller on a planer and get it down. And sometimes they'll come up. They won't come all the way to the surface, but sometimes they'll come up, to 30 feet of the surface where you can be pulling a planer and get a bite.
So do you find stuff with jet head stuff better than others, or do you they like it a little more stealthy?
Jets work because they stay in the water. They're heavier heads and they stay in the water and go down. Jets don't make bubbles unless they break the surface.
Got it.
Everybody thinks that a jet head's putting out bubbles underneath the water. He ain't making a bubble until he comes up to the top and then gets a breath and then pushes it out through those jets.
I learned something there. It's not like Bree. She's definitely going to be making bubbles under the surface until she gets to the top, right, Bree?
Yeah.
Wouldn't we all be? Come on now.